Hello, welcome to Intro to Discovery. This is a part of a closer training course. Discovery is the most important part of any sales call, particularly in high ticket, where you've got 30 minutes basically to get from 0 to 100. So discovery is the part where we find out where your prospect is and where they want to go. So for B2B, that could be, oh, they're not getting enough leads. For B2C, that could be they're not getting enough dates. They're not in good health, right? You've got fitness, you've got diet. So it just depends. But they all have someplace they are currently and someplace they want to go. And discovery is where we dig into the emotional reasons for the emotional consequences of their current state and the emotional reasons for going where they want to go. People buy an emotion, that's well established. And we're going to cover 7 emotional barriers that people have to jump over in order to get to a buying decision. So they're broken down into 7 parts. Some of you may have heard of some of these before, or all of them. Cole Gordon talks about them a lot. He got them from a few people, Tony Robbins, Jeremy Minor, etc. But these aren't new concepts. This is very well established. People have to have these, overcome limiting beliefs or have these beliefs to buy. And so we do them in order. It's a nice way to do discovery. It's a nice way to checklist when you're going through your discovery. Begin with pain, cost. If you can memorize these, pain, cost, doubt, desire, money, support, trust, you can go through your discovery process just kind of checking them off in your mind. Am I asking questions that have to do with pain, cost, doubt? Cover them all. The deeper you can get into them all, and the more objection prevention you can accomplish, and you won't have to deal with these at the end of your call because you'll have covered them already, is ideally. And then you can get the responses that you've gathered during this process and implement them in your pitch so that you go back to things I've said before. Like, well, remember you said that your last program had group calls and there was hundreds of people on there and you couldn't learn anything. What's different about our program is, and so forth. That's the sort of thing that valuable insights that you can gather in your discovery phase that'll help you in your pitch later on in the call. So pain is the pain that they're currently in, right? They're overweight, their business isn't doing well. These aren't just practical issues, they're also emotional issues. So if a company's struggling, that's causing stress, anxiety. So you want to get into not just what the problem is, but how it's making them feel, how it's affecting their life. The second one is cost. That's not price related. That is not the cost of your program. That's the cost of doing nothing. What's their life going to be like in 5 years if they're still in the same place they are presently, right? Whatever that is. How's your business going to look in 5 years? Will you even be in business in 5 years if you continue to have this problem? What's your life going to look like in 5 years if you're still out of shape? You're still not in the physical shape you want to be in. How's that going to affect your day-to-day life, your relationships, your work life, etc. Doubt, that's doubt that they can do it themselves. Okay, it's self-doubt, but it's also can they conquer this problem without the assistance of some other solution, right? Your solution is the idea here, right? You're trying to sell them a solution, and they need to believe that they need help from someone, if not you, someone else. That they can't conquer this problem themselves without extensive time and cost. So they may be able to figure it out, but it might take years and it might take hundreds of thousands of dollars, where if they just invested $10,000 today, they could solve these problems in the next 30, 60, 90 days, 6 months, what have you. It depends on what you're selling, who you're selling it to. Desire, that's their current situation versus their future situation, right? What are they looking to get? Are they looking to spend more time with their family? Are they looking to get more ROI on their ads? Are they looking to get more dates? And you don't just want to get the surface level stuff. You want to dig down into that. If they say they want to go, travel around the world and sit under a palm tree in Tahiti and work on their laptop, that's all great. But why? Why is that important to them, right? It may seem obvious, but you need to get them to think about these things. You need to get them to say out loud what it is what are their desires? Why are they important? What does their future life look like, and why is that important to them, right? Because you're eliciting these emotions, right? These emotional triggers. And you're also getting them to think about and articulate more of their own vision, because chances are they haven't given it a lot of thought in most cases. Money, that's the belief that they can afford it, right? That's different than whether they can or can't afford it. They have to believe they can afford it. They have to believe that they can't afford not to do it. So that's what questions about money are going to be related to. Support, that comes up a lot in spousal situations. Oh, I need to talk to my wife. I need to talk to my husband. So you want to find out, do they have the support of the people around them? Not just spouses, but friends, family. I mean, it could be their mother, right? They could be worried that their mom's going to make fun of them because they dropped another 5K on yet another program, right? So you want to get to the bottom of that. So that's what those questions are going to be about. Trust, that's the final one. Do they trust you? Do they trust your solution? Do they trust your company? So that's what those questions are going to be centered around. So moving on, pain, that's the first one. We've got to find, in some cases, you can do desire first, but that's a topic for another day. Typically, you'll dig into their pain first. And remember, that's emotional. So we're not just trying to find out what the problem is. We're trying to find out the emotional consequences of that problem as well, right? It's not just that their business is not getting enough leads. It's that that's causing sleepless nights, right? So to effectively dig into a prospect's current pain, it's essential to ask open-ended questions that encourage them to reflect on their current situation. So these are questions that say, well, so how's that affecting your business, right? That's not a yes or no question. You're asking for more information, and the more information you get, the better. It's not the questions you ask, it's the answers you get. So you're trying to get them to expound on their current situation and the problems it's causing. I broke these down into types. Okay, so these are all pain questions, but they're in different types. So general life and career situation type questions. What's your current work situation feel like? This would be a B2C question. This wouldn't be a B2B question. That's business to consumer versus business to business sales. Do you feel fulfilled in your job, right? You know, the answer is probably no, but they're not going to tell you. Typically, they'll say, oh, yeah, it's pretty good. You know, they don't usually say, unfortunately, they don't usually say, oh, I hate my job, it's miserable. They're like, oh, yeah, my job's pretty cool. So you need to dig down. So you're going to have follow-up questions for each of these, but that's too much to cover in this training. This is just giving you an idea of how to go through a discovery. What led you to consider exploring a new opportunity or career path? So again, this is for people trying to start a dropshipping business, affiliate marketing, if they want to get into high ticket sales. So these questions, some of them are specific to niche for sure, but the principles still apply, right? Are you currently where you want to be financially in terms of work-life balance? More sort of B2C questions. But most of you will be starting off in B2C. You won't be selling software to big Fortune 500 companies in your first job. So that's why a lot of these are geared towards more towards B2C. The type 2 would be pain with current job or work. Okay, slight distinction. I've got dogs barking in the background. I hope you guys can't hear that. What do you find most frustrating about your current job or career? Right now, tonality is huge. So you don't just say, what do you find most frustrating about your current job or career? Right? You're not going to get a response from that. You got to say, hey, listen, let me ask you something. What's the biggest challenge at your current job right now? What do you find most frustrating about it? If there was anything you could change. You ask it with some curiosity, with some concern. Those are two different tonalities, curiosity and concern. They're both very effective. But make it sound natural. You're not being nosy. You're just trying to find out more about them. You're curious. You're trying to help them. That's your job. Okay. Type 3, long-term goals. What are your long-term career and life goals? Right. Where do you see yourself going? Right. So. A lot of these overlap. So right now we're in the pain section, so this could be something you could ask in the cause section, in the doubt section, in the desire section. But depending on what you're trying to check off and what emotions you're trying to elicit, here we're trying to dig into their pain. So if we were asking a question like this, we'd be relating it back to what they're not doing now, right? They're not accomplishing their long-term goals presently, right? That's where the second follow-up question would come in. How do you see your current job fitting into those goals? Oh, well, not exactly, right? They've got big goals in their working in a warehouse or something, it's probably not fitting in to their long-term goals. Financial concerns. How satisfied are you with your current income? That's an easy one, right? They're not going to be super satisfied usually. Do you feel financially secure in your current role, right? Probably not. Most people are paycheck to paycheck. So you're trying to get them to say, well, not really, yeah, so is that kind of difficult? Is it hard to pay your bills on a month-to-month basis, right? So you're digging into those emotions, and it's a lot of these questions sound personal, but if you build your rapport and you ask them with the right tonality, and you're not trying to be a salesperson, you're just trying to help them figure out how to solve their current problem, people will open up to you. So it takes a little practice, and you've got to be laid back and not sound nosy, right? So can I ask you something? When you say something like, can I ask you something? It sounds like you're just being sort of nice. Or sometimes you can say, do you mind if I ask you a personal question? And the reason I ask is, and you give them a reason, and then you ask, they're much more likely to open up to you. But a lot of this stuff is more advanced. We don't have time to go into it, so we're just going to move along here because we don't want this to take hours. Time and freedom questions. These are all related to pain, remember. Okay, so as we're asking, we're not going to ask all these questions. We're going to ask a few questions in our discovery related to pain. We're going to dig down a little bit. That's definitely an important one, so we're going to spend a little time on it. But then we're going to move on to cost, doubt, desire, money, support, trust. Okay, and we're going to try to check off those boxes as we go through discovery. For appointment setting, a lot of these questions are useful when somebody tries to get kind of squirrely with you and says, well, hey, I just want to know how much it costs, and is this a scam, or whatever they're saying. You can say, well, listen, let me ask you something. How long have you been searching for online opportunity, right? Just change the subject and make them think about why they're here, right? So a lot of these questions are very useful just to kind of regain control of the conversation when you're doing appointment setting. So that's where this stuff can really come in handy when you're doing appointment setting, because people are going to try and run over the top of you sometimes by asking you a bunch of questions. You can say, okay, well, give them a quick answer, but then get right back into your questions and retake control of the conversation. Self-doubt and confidence. So like I said, a lot of these overlap. The questions like these might be asked in the doubt section. So sometimes you can cover a couple things with one question. You can cover doubt and pain and desire. It's possible. So as long as you check off all 7 of these beliefs, they don't have to necessarily be different questions. Sometimes a question can handle a couple of those. Just keep it, it's a mental framework that you're working through as you go through discovery. What's your biggest concern when it comes to making a career change or trying something new, right? Well, one of their biggest concerns, for instance, might be that they're going to fail, right? Fear of failure, that's a big one. Even I used to think fear of success was nonsense, but that's a real thing, right? Having a plane and a yacht and everything sounds cool, but it comes with its own concerns. Specific to high-ticket sales, we'll skip this one. Cost, okay? Cost is the second one, right? That's the cost of doing nothing. Can't stress that enough. This is not price related. This is what is your life going to look like in 5 to 10 years if everything stays the same, or a year from now, or 6 months. What's your life going to look like in 6 months if you haven't pulled the trigger on this and done something about it, right? To explore the cost of doing nothing, you want to get the prospect to reflect on the consequence of staying in their current situation and the potential long-term impact, right? That's what this is about. What is going to happen if you do nothing? You're trying to create urgency, okay? Impact on career growth, right? If nothing changes in the next 6 to 12 months, where do you see yourself in your current career, right? Say it really cool and casual like that, right? Because you want them to answer. It's not the questions you ask, it's the answers you get. So you can fiddle with these questions, that they don't have to be word for word. You just have to know what type of answers you're trying to elicit, where you're trying to go, and ask the questions that'll steer your prospect in that direction. These are all great examples, but there's many more questions you could ask. There's many ways you could ask them, and there's many follow-up questions you could ask as well. Like I said, we just don't have time to go into all of that. This is just an intro to the concepts here. Financial consequences. If your income stays the same over the next few years, how will that impact your lifestyle and financial goals? Or you could say, how's that going to affect your personal relationship with your wife, or How's that going to affect your kids? You know, how much is college these days? What's college going to, you said your kid was 5. What's your college going to cost when they're 18, 13 years from now? Probably be $1 million a year, right? Do you think that is going to present a problem? Do you think that your current income is going to be able to put your kids through a good college? That's kind of harsh, but hey, that's reality. And just remember, you're always concerned, you're curious, you're not just being a jerk, you're trying to help them. Time and freedom. How much longer are you willing to work under the current conditions without gaining the freedom you're seeking? That's kind of a kind of a corny one, okay? But how much longer are you willing to keep doing the same things you've been doing and not make a big change, right? You're trying to get them to get some urgency, right? Because they will put it off. They don't want to spend money. They'll put it off till next week, next month, usually forever. Usually they'll just never pull the trigger. So here's your opportunity to help them, and you want to get them over these emotional barriers so that they can make a decision today and start in the right direction. Maybe it won't work, right? Maybe they will fail because they are just not willing to put in the work, right? Like let's say it's weight loss and they want to lose 100 pounds. You've got the way to do it, but they still have to do their part. But at least you can get them off in the right direction and make an effort to help them, because if they do nothing and they keep doing things the way they've been doing them, as Einstein supposedly said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So emotional mental toll. How does the thought of being in the same position a year from now make you feel, right? You got to ask those ones kind of carefully when you start saying things like, how does that make you feel? You got to ask these. You got to fit them in at the appropriate time. Sorry about that. And ask them in the appropriate way. And always remember, it's not the questions you ask, it's the answers you get. Missed opportunities. What opportunities might you be missing out on by not taking action now, right? Like opportunity cost, right? If you're trying to make 100 plus K, 200K a year, what have you, 300K, $1 million a year, every day that you postpone starting that journey is costing you money, right? If you want to make $1 million over the next 5 years and you postpone it another 6 months, there's going to be that's a lot of money, right? It adds up fast. So we're trying to dig into all the reasons why taking action now is important. Again, we don't have time to go into super detail here, unfortunately. Legacy long term. That's like, what do you want people to remember about you? What do you want on your tombstone? Type of questions, right? So be careful with these, but again, like they're kids. What kind of future do you envision for your children? What kind of universities do you want them to go to? How much is that going to cost, right? So questions on cost. By asking these questions, you can help prospects recognize the long-term costs of inaction and how staying in their current situation might prevent them from achieving their goals. That's the whole point here. Doubt, big one. They have to doubt that they can handle this on their own. They have to believe that they need your help or somebody's help, right? And you're the fastest, most efficient way to get to their desired outcome is what you're trying to accomplish here. Now, if you're not, have some integrity and just say so. Say, hey, listen, I don't think we can help you. Let me point you in another direction that I think would work better for you. But hopefully, if they're on the call and you have a good solution, then you are the best solution for them. And you don't want to tell them that. You want to get them to tell you that. That's why you ask them questions instead of making statements. To address doubts about a prospect's ability to achieve their goals on their own, you want to get them to reflect on their past experiences and the challenges they might face if they attempt to do it alone. So the idea there is that obviously what they're doing is not working, right? Otherwise they wouldn't be here. So you want to ask questions that get them to think about that. Think about when they tried drop shipping and it failed, right? Why was that? Well, one of the big reasons is probably because they didn't have good coaching, right? Because they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know how to edit photos or videos, or they didn't know anything about marketing. There's a lot of skills you need to be good at drop shipping. They weren't good at product research. Learning all that stuff on your own is a lot of trial and error, a lot of blown advertising dollars. And if you'd had somebody that was an expert at it, that could have answered some of those questions and and accelerated your progress severely, that's worth $10,000, right? Or you can go blow $100,000 on ads and get no results and take 3 years of your life. Like, that's the alternative. So that's the way you kind of want to be thinking about doubt. Self-assessment of skills and knowledge. So asking questions that get them to express to you how kind of ignorant they are, basically, because they probably are. They probably don't know a lot about what they're trying to do. Otherwise, they'd already be doing it and having success with it. Financial costs of a do-it-yourself approach, right? Have you considered the financial investment required to pursue this path on your own? So that's like what we were talking about. There's a lot of examples, but a good one is you're drop shipping and you're just pouring money down the drain, doing ads that are not returning. You're not getting ROI, right? You're losing money. Your ads are costing you $40 a piece, and your profit on your average sale is $7 or $15. That's a loser, and they'll keep blaming something other than their advertising or other than their offer because they don't know what they're doing. They don't actually know why it's not working. What do we got here? Type 4, speed to success. How long do you think? So again, we're getting back to, do it on your own and take 5 years, or get some help and get this done in 6 months. Okay, so it's kind of how you want to be thinking about these questions. But you're not going to tell them that. That's really important. Like, if you just say, hey, listen, if you do it on your own, it's going to take you 5 years. If you do it with us, we can get it done in 90 days. If you just say that, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. You need to ask them questions that get them to realize that and say it out loud themselves, because they already kind of know that, right? They wouldn't even be on the call if they didn't know that. So avoiding mistakes, that's trial and error. All the trial and error that they're going to have to go through, when they could, bypass a lot of that by having some expert advice. Confidence and success. How confident are you? So yeah, you're digging into you're kind of stirring up these feelings of doubt, right? The role of expert, what value do you see in learning from someone who's already achieved what you want to achieve? Again, you're not telling them, don't you think it would, you could ask a yes or no question as long as you know for a fact the answer is going to be yes. Like, don't you think having a one-on-one coaching with a mentor who's already done this would be helpful to you? They're going to say, yeah, I could see that, but that's kind of it's better to ask them questions that get them to kind of figure it out for themselves. By asking these questions, you're helping prospects recognize the difficulty and potential risks of trying to achieve their goals on their own. That's the point, right? So desire, goals, where do they want to go? What do they envision? They want to spend more time with their family. They want to get more dates. They want their business to go from $10K a month to $100K a month, whatever it is. To explore a prospect's desire to achieve their goals, excuse me, I have allergies. You want to help them articulate what they truly want and why it's important to them. So again, this is all emotional stuff. We're trying to get to the emotional reasons that are driving them, because that's what drives human beings. What does your ideal career and lifestyle look like in the next 1 to 3 years? Your future pacing, okay? You're trying to, now you've talked about a lot of the stuff that isn't good. Now you're starting to steer towards the stuff that is good. What could be if they take action now? Sort of the way to think about this stuff. What's driving you to pursue this change now? That's a good one. Why now, though, right? Like, they've been, let's say, driving a truck for 10 years, and they just in the last 3 months started looking into online opportunities. What caused them to do that, right? There had to be a moment where they decided, you know what, maybe they just stumbled across something, but there's an emotional reason there somewhere, right? Dig down deep and try to find a moment if possible. Like, to be like, oh, I had this, I fell asleep and I drove off the freeway, and I didn't roll my truck, thank goodness, but I almost did. And I realized I've got to make a change. That'd be great if you can get an actual concrete moment where they decided I've got to do something different. And a great way is like, so why now though? What changed recently? Is there, dig down to that stuff. So that's a good one. Financial and lifestyle goals. What kind of income are you aiming for, and how would that change your life, right? And if they give you a number, say, why that number? When they say, I'd like to make 10K a month. Why 10K a month, right? Because that elicits emotional. They start thinking of all the things they don't have because they're not making 10K a month, and all the things they would have and that would change if they were making 10K a month. So get them to think about it. Why 10K? Why that number? Especially these days when that's not much money anymore. Not what it used to be anyway. How important is it for you to break free from the 9-to-5 grind and gain more freedom? So yeah, how important is this life change to you? Is this career change to you? Like you're now you're digging into like commitment, right? Like is this something they're really going to do, or did they just see like a TikTok ad and they just kind of stumbled onto this call and they're actually just going to go play video games after you get off the call with them? So that's an important one too, right? Like you got to make sure that they're not going to spend any money particularly if it's like their life savings or close to their life savings, if they don't really want, if this isn't really important. So that's an important part of desire. How strong is their desire? Why now? We talked about that. Why are you looking to change now though, right? Why now though? What happens if you don't act on this opportunity now? How would that affect your long-term goals, right? Get them to say it. Don't tell them, hey, if you don't do this now, blah, blah, blah. Don't tell them. Ask them. It's much more effective. It's 1,000 times more effective. Like it's not even worth talking about. It's night and day. What are you willing to sacrifice, right? Get them to say, oh, no, I'm willing to sacrifice. I'm willing to sacrifice, because you can use that later. You can say, hey, you told me you were willing to sacrifice, and I'm not seeing any sacrifice here. We're talking about $500, and you're acting like I'm trying to steal your puppy. So getting this stuff out of the way in discovery can be used later on if objections come up at the end. Ideally, if you do this properly, you won't get objections. This is objection prevention. You're handling all these things up front. You're conquering all these demons up front, and you don't have to deal with them later. But if you do, you can go back to something that said earlier and say, hey, listen, you said that you were going to get a divorce if something didn't change quick, and now suddenly it's not important. It's not important to take action. You're just going to put it off another 6 months. How expensive are divorce attorneys, right? What kind of legacy do you want to leave for yourself and your families? We had a question similar to this before. Like I said, a lot of these overlap. Sometimes you can conquer some desire emotions and some cost emotions or some doubt emotions in one line of questioning, and that's fine, as long as you check them all off, right? As long as you touch on all of these emotional barriers. Dream life, right? Get them to articulate in future pace their life when all of these problems are solved, right? What's life going to be like? People all want this dream life of time and freedom, and to be able to vacation and travel and send their kids to the colleges they want and live in the safe neighborhoods. Like everybody wants the same thing. Nobody's quite sure how to get there, and they don't. There's a lot of doubt about whether they can accomplish it, and so particularly on B2C, if you're selling something that is geared towards that, like helping them with their dropshipping business or what have you, getting them into high ticket, these are really important questions to get them to envision what life can be like, believe that they can do it, and believe that they can do it now, and they just need to get started. Long-term impact. Like I said, a lot of these questions overlap. What would reaching your goals mean for your family or loved ones, right? That's particularly if they mention their family, which they often will. Like they want to spend more time with their family. They want to have more money to take care of their parents. In many cases, they'll have already said something like that. These questions help prospects not only articulate their desire, but also connect emotionally to their goals, reinforcing the urgency to act on the opportunity now. That's the same theme coming up, right? Because if they don't buy today, they probably won't buy. You will get some follow-up, but most of your deals will come on one call closes, and in order to do that, you need to follow this process like it's a religion, right? You need to work through their reasons, desires, emotions, emotional triggers, etc., and build that urgency and get them to pull the trigger on what's going to be probably a large investment if you're in high ticket sales. It's going to be thousands of dollars, usually in the 5 to 10K range. But even if it's only $2,000 or $3,000, that's still a lot of money for most people. Which brings us to money. They have to believe they can afford it. Okay? To help prospects work through doubts about whether they can afford the solution being offered, you want to guide them into thinking about affordability from different angles. So not just the $740 they got in their checking account. You've got to get them to think about what not spending it will do, right? How much is that going to cost them, and what will spending it will do in terms of how much that's going to get them, right? So ROI. Yeah, it's $10,000, but if it makes you an extra $1 million over the next 5 years, would it be worth it? Well, the answer is yes, right? That's a good investment. What's the price of inaction, right? That goes back to cost of doing nothing. Potential opportunity cost goes back to the cost of doing nothing. So, like I said, there's a lot of overlap in these. It's just important that you address all of these 7 emotional barriers. How do you typically evaluate the value of an investment like this? So get them to tell you, I don't know. You need to get them to think about this stuff. What's more important to you, the upfront cost or the potential long-term return on investment, right? You're challenging them because they know they're wrong, right? It depends. Like if their reason is they think they just don't believe you, they don't believe you can help them, that's a separate thing. But in a lot of cases, we're talking about money here. It's just that they don't want to get off their wallet. That's all there is to it. I mean, maybe they don't have the money. That's not an objection. That's a condition. Right? They physically don't have the money. They'd have to sell their car or something to even come up with $500. That's a separate issue. Okay, then you can talk to them about that. But if technically, they could probably do it today. They could probably put it on a credit card, or maybe, they've got a few extra bucks in their savings account. Then they're just trying to talk themselves into not spending the money. They just don't want to spend it. Maybe they want to buy an Xbox, or maybe they just, they like to go bowling and drink beer. I mean, whatever it is, right? They've got other things they want to spend the money on. You've got to remind them that this isn't about today. It's about the rest of their life. Current financial priorities. What are you currently spending money on that might be less important than achieving your long-term goals? That's a good one, right? Like they're spending $10 a day on cigarettes or what have you, right? They're buying $200 worth of video games a month, okay? You get the idea. If finances weren't an issue, so that's a good one. Money aside, would you move forward with this opportunity, right? That's always a good one. You want to isolate the money objection. You want to get them to promise you with 100% certainty that it's just a money thing and it's nothing else. And then you need to find out whether it's just a money thing because they don't have the money or because they don't want to spend the money. Have you considered the potential cost of not investing in this solution, right? That goes back to cost, right? Cost of doing nothing. But but in this situation, it's about money. You're trying to remind them that they need to spend the money now, today, and not talk themselves out of spending it. Is essentially what you're doing. That's how you want to think about it mentally. I would argue. How do you see this investment impacting your income potential over the next 6 months? And they say, I think I make more money. Well, yeah, that's the whole point, right? How much is your current financial situation holding you back from living the life you truly want? So, you're digging in on those emotions, right? Like what they're doing now is not what they want. Right? Maybe it's fine. Maybe their life's fine. Like that's cool, but they've got bigger dreams. Everybody does, and you want to help them, jump that hurdle because everybody knows it's kind of possible, but they don't know how to do it, and they're worried if they try something, it's not going to work. So you need to work through all those emotions, and this is how you do it by addressing these 7 emotional barriers. How do you think this investment could impact your ability to achieve financial freedom faster? Right? That's a good question, right? They say, I don't think it will help me do it faster. I think I can do it faster myself. Well, if that's how they feel, you want to address that, right? But they'll probably say, I can see how it would be faster. And say, why do you think it would be faster? Get them to articulate it. Don't tell them. That's a real easy trap to fall into, is to want to tell them the true, reality. Hey, listen, it's going to be a lot faster if you do it this way. It's just not as effective as getting them. It's not nearly anywhere near as effective as getting them to say it themselves. Okay? Reframing, have you ever made a financial investment that paid off in ways you didn't expect? How would you feel about this investment if you knew it could help you make back 5-10 times the cost, right? So that's how you want to think about these. So look over these later, go back through the slides, try to think about different ways to ask the questions. Go to ChatGPT and punch in one of these questions and give me 100 different ways to say the same thing. Ask GPT, or say, and then give me 100 follow-up questions. Right? You can take these concepts and work on them in your own time, and then later on, of course, we have more advanced training. These questions help prospects see affordability in a broader context, focusing not just on the initial cost, but also the long-term benefits, potential ROI, and the financial impact of not taking action. So you're trying to remind them that not taking action is a bad idea and taking action is a good idea, to put it plainly. Support, like I said, big one. They've got to believe that they have support of their spouse, friends, family. If they don't have it, then you need to address that. And you might need to take it from a different angle, right? If there's nobody believes in me, my wife doesn't believe in me, my mom doesn't believe in me, my friends think I'm crazy, nobody's going to support me if they find out I spent this money. Like, you might run into that, not usually, but if you do, then you need to overcome that objection. And you do it in discovery, not at the end of the call. You handle it now, up front. Understanding current support system. How supportive is your spouse? You get the idea here. Okay, you can go through these questions. Alignment with spouse and family. Does your spouse or partner share your vision of the future, especially in terms of financial freedom and lifestyle changes? That's like a yes or no. Yeah, they want the same thing. And then you can ask follow-up questions. Well, how do they see you getting there? Have you guys talked about this? Do you guys have any plans so far? Or does your spouse share your plans? Okay, you get the idea. Concerns about approval. This has been going on. I'm sort of starting to hurry through this a little bit because I don't want it to be over an hour, certainly. Concerns about approval. What concerns does your spouse or family have about making this kind of investment, right? Like if they say, oh, my mom thinks I'm a nut. Well, why does she think that? What's she worried about, right? Well, I've invested in a few of these programs in the past and none of them worked, okay? And then we want to be always, this is another one, always operating under the why everything else they've tried in the past has failed and why this is going to be different kind of model, right? So particularly if they have tried a lot of things in the past. So often that's not the case. Often they're sort of new to this whole stuff. But for a lot of people, they've done drop shipping, affiliate marketing, copywriting. They tried 5 different things and they all failed. You want to figure out why did they fail, and then you want to help them think about why this is going to be different. Share benefits. These are all questions just trying to help them work through their support issues, support barriers, because sometimes they don't have them. Sometimes they're like, no, my wife's 100%. She's 100%. She's all in, right? All my friends and family are cool. All right, that's fine. And you don't need to spend a lot of time on it. But if there's some stuff there, you want to handle it now in discovery. You do not want to handle it at the end of the call when they say, oh, I need to talk to my wife. I need to talk to my husband. I need to talk to my mom. I need to talk to my best friend. I need to talk to my coach. You get that one a lot. They already have a coach. I need to talk to my mentor, right? You need to have handled that up front. Emotional and moral support. Do you feel like you have enough emotional support from your same stuff? Discussions. Have you had a thorough conversation with your spouse or / family, friends about why this opportunity is important to you? These are dredging up. Well, yeah, I did talk to her. She didn't really think it was a good idea, right? You want to handle this up front. You want to convince them by asking them questions, not by telling them, that they need to sort of set that aside and, if necessary, prove this person wrong by succeeding, right? Because if they're in a situation where talking to their wife's going to do no good, that's pointless, right? Oh, I need to talk to my wife. Why? So she can tell you no, that you're an idiot, right? So you don't want to get in that situation. You want to handle that up front and sort of get them to articulate out loud that this is something they need to do, and they just need to have the courage to do it, even if they don't have the support. So we'll move on from that. But you can go through each of these, and I'll include a file of the slides themselves without the video as well. Support. By asking these questions, you're helping the prospect reflect on how their decision affects not only themselves, but also their support network, yada, yada. You get the idea, okay? But again, the thing to remember is that you need to address all 7 of these in discovery up front before you get to the pitch, before you get to the commitment phase, before you get to the close, and before you run into objections at the close. You want to objection prevention. You do not want to handle these at the end of the call. You're going to be in big trouble if you have to handle these at the end of the call typically. I mean, you might still have a couple little ones, that's fine, that happens, but ideally you've handled all this stuff up front. At the end, maybe you tie down a couple little, details, that's okay, but you don't want to be overcoming a big, huge objection at the end of the call. You want to cover that stuff way up front in discovery. Trust, the last one, right? Big time. They have to trust you, they have to trust your company, and they have to trust your methods, right? They have to trust that your solution, your method will get them from point A to point B. Money aside, what do you think about the method, right? What do you think about the method going from here to here so that you could be making 10 to 20K a month, right? Oh, I think the method's great, there's a lot more stuff we can go into about commitment phase and temp checks and so forth, but that's a topic for another day. Right now we're just talking about discovery and getting into the emotional drivers and getting them to express the emotional reasons for making their decisions. So trust. When addressing a prospect's trust in the product, service, or company, it's essential to explore any doubts or concerns they may have about credibility, effectiveness, or follow-through. So this is where, case studies, showing them your website, giving them some value up front, showing them some materials, showing them some training materials up front, etc. That's going to relieve a lot of their concerns about this stuff. They go, oh, okay, this is a real thing. This isn't just some Nigerian Bitcoin scam or what have you. Credibility and track record. What do you look for when determining whether a company or service is trustworthy, right? Oh, well, like how long have they been around? If that's like really important to them and your company's only 6 months old, these are things you want to discover up front in discovery. You don't want to at the end and be like, well, I just don't want to go with your company because you're only 6 months old. You don't want to run into that at the end of the call because it's too late then. If you get a big objection like that at the end of the call, it's usually too late. So you just want to you don't want to go into the details of the offer, okay? Because that sounds like work. So you don't want to go into long explanations about all the things your company does, etc. Okay, but you want to do some case studies, talk about what you do. You are the face of your company, so if they trust you, they're probably going to trust your company. That helps, obviously. And then be honest about your company and say, hey, listen, we're only a year and a half old, but this is what we've done. We've gone from this much revenue to this much revenue. We have 60 employees, or we're a small company. We have, if you're a small company with 5 people, then focus on the strengths of that, right? Put together the strengths of your particular company, your particular solution, your particular product or service, and be ready to overcome any concerns about those up front and kind of slip them in up front in discovery before you even get to your pitch, so that they're feeling really good about everything. That's the whole point of this whole process. You want them like raw before you do your pitch, and your pitch should be very short. 60 seconds, 90 seconds, 3 minutes maybe. The more time you spend on your pitch, the more questions they're going to have. Okay, the pitch is just a quick explanation of why everything else they've tried in the past has failed, why your solution's different, and then future pacing their what their life's going to look like when they complete your solution. So most of your call is discovery. Then you got a short pitch, then you got a short commitment, and you got a short close. So everything needs to be handled before the pitch, really, to be effective. So that's the point of discovery. It's extremely important, and so you can't go over this stuff enough. Comparisons to competitors. You say, well, what they do over there is they do a lot of large group coaching calls with hundreds of people on them. Our coaching calls are very intimate. Our group coaching calls, and we have this much one-on-one coaching, whatever it is, right? It depends on who your competitor is and who you are, but you need to already know, like, if this comes up and they say, well, I was looking at this place, and they kind of do the same thing. You already need to know how you're going to overcome those, and you need to do that up front in discovery, not at the end of the call. Personal experience and referrals. So like, hey, this is, oh, I want to talk to some of your customers. You don't want to get into that. You want to try and steer around that. Case studies are useful. Oh, well, you remember we were talking about Jason. He's only been here 6 weeks. He's already da-da-da. Maybe you can show him a picture of Jason on your website. There's different ways to handle this stuff. Like I said, that's questions for another day. But these are questions you can ask to get them to kind of tell you what's important to them. How do they think about trust in a company solution? Company transparency. How do you feel about the level of transparent communication you've received from us so far? So if they're like, oh yeah, your setter was super cool, and yeah, he answered all my questions. You've been great. You've answered all my questions. Yeah, you've been totally honest. Like that's what you want. You don't want to be, well, I don't know, it's kind of fishy. I don't know, your website's a little scammy. Like that's not what you want, right? So that's self-explanatory. So a lot of this is sort of, like I said, past experiences. That's a good one. Have any past negative experiences with other companies cause you to be more cautious? So that's a big one. They've already been burned before, right? And you need to figure out how you can get them to think about how that's not going to happen here, right? And so like showing them some of the stuff they're already going to get can be helpful. Well, let me send you some of our materials. Let's go on the website here and look at some testimonials. Let's take you into our Slack channel or Discord or whatever it is. I can kind of show you around, show you some of the people you'll be working with, right? And that'll ease a lot of their concerns that like, oh, this is just a Bitcoin scam. Not that Bitcoin is a scam. I like Bitcoin, but there are a lot of Bitcoin scams. So don't let anybody get their hands on your Bitcoin. Do you trust the process we laid out to help you achieve your goals? If not, what concerns you? I would say, what do you think about the process that we talked about, the 4 steps? Do you believe that's going to get you to the goal of making $10,000 a month within the next 6 months, right? And then if they say, well, not really, oh, really? Well, why is that? What is it? What about it concerns you, right? So it's kind of the idea there. So we're going to wrap this up. This is the end of the presentation. There's a few more here, a few more questions. Like I said, I'll include the slides by themselves so you can click through them at your own speed rather than having to pause on the video. And but hopefully I explained the general idea so that you understand how this works. During the discovery process, you're going to ask them a lot of questions. You're going to dig into a lot of things. And if you have a mental framework that you're trying to check off these boxes, these emotional barriers, their pain, their doubt, their desire, their money, their support, their trust, pain, doubt, desire. I think I missed one there, but you get the point. It's really helpful when you're going through your discovery to sort of be mentally checking these off in your mind. Did we cover doubt? Did we cover pain? Did we cover desire? Did we cover their money concerns? Did we cover their support concerns? And if you covered them all and the outcomes were good and you crossed those bridges up front, right? Then you can transition into your pitch. And then it's far less likely that you're going to have to battle those at the end of the call. That's the whole point. It's the most important thing that you can learn. It's the most important thing that you can do in any sales, and particularly in high ticket sales, because the stakes are so high in such a compressed time. Yes, it's not a $500,000 or $1 million home, but those things take months, weeks, months, and they've made up their mind they're going to buy a house. By the time they pick an agent, they're pretty much settled on that. It's not the same thing. Here, you're trying to get them to drop thousands of dollars right now, and you just met them 30 minutes ago. So it's really important that you handle these things sort of scientifically. Long-term, how important is it to you that we maintain a long-term relationship with our clients, right? Questions like this. A good one is when they say, well, before you price drop is to say, okay, listen, you'll process the investment with me, and then this is what's going to happen. And you say, we're gonna set up an onboarding call. We're gonna do this. We're gonna go over we're gonna decide, when we're gonna meet, how often your trainings are going to be, which trainings you're going to do, when you're going to, so kind of lay that out before you price drop. And they get a mental picture of what the next few days or week are going to look like. That's really good to getting them to get over that concern, because a lot of times they're thinking, what's going to happen when I press the buy button? What's going to happen when I give you this $500 or $1,000 down payment or whatever? What's tomorrow going to look like? And if you can kind of future pace that for them, and they go, oh, okay, oh, they get excited. Oh, so we're going to have another call tomorrow, right? All of a sudden they're not too worried about that, or not worried about it at all is the goal. So again, there's a lot more detail. There are more advanced trainings on this, but this was just to give you a general overview of how discovery works, particularly in the high ticket space. And keep in mind that if you're appointment setting, all of these questions are extremely powerful weapons to use against people, as particularly those that are giving you a hard time. If the person's super friendly and easygoing, you probably don't need to wield as many of these in your conversations with them, although you will throw some in for sure. That's part of your job. But a lot of these can be used to combat prospects that are giving you a hard time and trying to push you around. I hope that makes sense. I hope you guys got something out of this, and I hope to see you soon on another training and in person. You guys all have a great rest of your day or evening or morning or whatever it is, and take care now. Peace.